In the news this week, Mark McGowan urged to cut the cost of living with long-term plans to drive down household fees in the next state budget. A WA News exclusive.
Also tonight, planning to sue. Gun shop owners outraged over ownership data published as the government pushed to update firearm legislation.
Damning report, Crown unfit to run Perth Casino following findings by the Royal Commission.
FIFO Mental Health Advocates campaign makes an impact as an Archibald Prize portrait of him is presented to Rio Tinto. Plus, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment.
This is The Evening News with Ivan Loom and Maliva Thorne.
Good evening. As the cost of living continues to go up, Premier Mark McGowan was asked about whether increases to household fees are part of the plan as the next state budget looms. It comes after our exclusive news poll shows 85% people want cuts to household fees.
They are not surprising figures, but all I'd say is we have, over our time in office, kept cost of living pressures down as much as we can, at the same time as managing the state's finances responsibly.
Premier and Treasurer Mark McGowan is urged to build a long-term strategy to reduce WA's household fees, with calls to achieve this by dramatically boosting the government's investments in renewable energy sources in the next state budget. Expert modelling claims an average household can save up to $5,000 a year if renewable policies measures are introduced. Greens MLC Brad Pettit joined me exclusively this week. Brad Pettit, thanks for your time. What should the McGowan government do to reduce household fees and energy costs? What are the solutions?
It'd be fair to say, actually, the McGowan government's largely dropped the ball on the things that will drive down household energy prices. They've dropped the ball on subsidies for electric vehicles. Now, this WA is the only state, the only jurisdiction, in fact, in the whole country that doesn't have subsidies to get people out of increasingly expensive to run standard petrol vehicles into electric vehicles. We're one of the few states that actually doesn't help households transition, say, to electric heat pump hot water systems. If you're running your hot water of electricity and heat pump versus gas, it's less than half the price. If you've got solar panels on the roof, it's 1/10 of the price. So this is the stuff that this state government needs to step up and do. It'll save households money, it'll reduce our carbon emissions, and it'll make us more energy secure. It's a win-win-win, but it requires leadership. And at the moment, to be pretty blunt about it, we've seen the government largely drop the ball on this, not invest and not help households get their prices down.
85% viewers surveyed want cuts to household fees, 13% want price freeze, only 2% says it's affordable. What's your take, and how much savings can renewable energies bring?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. In terms of cost of living pressures are huge for households, and we've got at the moment with rising fuel prices, there's no doubt that rising power prices just adding to that. And there's a huge opportunity if you can actually cut people's both fuel travel costs in terms of, I don't mean fuel prices in this way, but if we can get households to transition quickly to electric vehicles, quickly to electric houses, then the modelling shows, this is expert modelling, shows that every household by the end of this decade will save $5,000 per year. That's $5,000 per year per household, which is extraordinary, and that's where we need to be going. But it's going to require government to step up and invest in the right things now if we're going to bring down those prices.
There seems to be a lack of political will, and the state budget is coming soon. What should Premier and Treasurer Mark McGowan do now?
What should happen now is this budget is an opportunity to actually totally shift this. Major investments in clean energy, helping households transition to clean energy and electrification. There are win-win-wins here, saving households money, and the McGowan government needs to put it in this budget and make it happen.
Brad Pettit, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you.
A gun shop owner is looking into the possibility of launching legal action against the McGowan government after ownership data was published on the newspaper front page this week.
It comes after decisions were made to expand and update WA's firearm regulation. Luke Derrick has this exclusive report.
The backlash against WA's firearm legislation reform is brewing, with a gun store owner in Perth seriously considering legal action against the McGowan government. Zane Beaton, the owner and operator of Beaton Firearms, has said that he and his business are exploring a possible class action after the publishing of gun ownership data on Tuesday's newspaper front page. There are concerns that the publishing of the locations of gun ownership will increase community tensions and firearm owners being targeted by potential criminals. Mr. Beaton raised concerns of several clients who have made additional investments because of private information being leaked.
Certainly, there has been people within government, within the police, within private businesses that have done the wrong thing, and we're going to investigate any legal opportunities available to us.
Mr. Beaton is seeking to remedy the negative impact that this release of data will have on his clients' well-being.
We're looking to remedy and mitigate damages to the clientele, potentially. And that's not just financial impact, it could also be the psychological impact and whatnot that this is already having on my clients. Not to mention the potential impacts, which it could be, we're talking about break and enters, theft, assault, that could potentially come by these people being identified as firearm owners. And I really do think that the people responsible need to come forward, put their hand up and take ownership for this very poor action that's happened.
This comes after Premier McGowan has announced a bid to expand Western Australia's firearm regulations amid revelations that there are more firearms in the state than previously thought. The state government will be looking at regulations to reduce the number of guns in the state. Across Western Australia, 3.4% of people are gun owners. Whilst there are 89,000 people with gun licences, there are approximately 350,000 guns throughout the state.
We need to put community safety at the heart of our gun laws in Western Australia. Community safety for everyone.
Luke Derrick, WAMN News.
Meanwhile, briefly, Prime Minister Scott Morrison visited Perth on Sunday with a major health announcement at the Harry Perkins Institute with a $385 million investment into local cancer treatment. It includes 10 operating theatres, intensive care units, extensive treatment facilities, hundreds of overnight rooms and on-site research. Mr. Morrison also visited an apprenticeship business in Welshpool and had lunch with the Burmese community later in the day.
Changes are on the cards for the Perth's only casino, with the Royal Commission revealing Crown unsuitable to run the venue in WA. The Royal Commission has handed down recommendations in its report, but there are concerns they don't go far enough, with a former MP calling for more competition. Nelson Liu reports.
A damning report and a need for change.
There are deficiencies with the casino operator in this state.
Management of Perth's only casino subjected to a Royal Commission, and now found in the wrong.
The Crown entities are presently not suitable to continue to hold a gaming licence for the Perth Casino.
A report has been handed down in Parliament investigating Crown in Perth, questioning its suitability to hold a casino licence in the state. But its near 1,000 pages have indicated wide-ranging failures in its operations.
This is important as this is the first time these issues have been assessed since the grant of the Perth Casino licence in 1985.
Among the problems, Crown was found to enable money laundering while also not having effective anti-money laundering measures. Junkets with links to criminals were also allowed. There's been a failure to minimise gambling-related harm, and Crown wasn't accountable with the Gaming and Wagering Commission. But the findings haven't led to Crown's licence being revoked. They've been allowed to stay open while they address the issues.
This is about remediation rather than revocation, protecting the jobs of thousands of employees at the casino.
The McGowan government has acknowledged regulation was also to blame, calling for changes with increased powers. 59 recommendations have been made. The government will consider them, but there are questions about how they'll respond.
The problem now is how does the government react to that, other than considering a report and giving a rap on the knuckles and maybe a small fine.
There are calls for the Casino Act to be overhauled.
The only way to do that is either you bring in some competition and you remove the monopoly control.
Nelson Liu, WAMN News.
A 31-year-old man from Shelley was arrested by police and charged after allegedly incapacitating 2 women he met on different online dating sites. The man went on 1 separate date each with the 2 women, and on both of the dates is alleged to have put something in the women's drinks to incapacitate them. Police also further alleged that he sexually assaulted one of the women after she was incapacitated. The incident allegedly happened between February and March this year. The man has been charged with 2 counts of stupefying to commit an indictable offence and 2 counts of sexual penetration without consent. He appeared in court on Friday.
The Australian Medical Association has released their public hospital report card for 2022, revealing the WA government underfunded our state's hospital system. The report shows from the financial year 2014 to 2020, spending reduced by 0.96%. The report card based its metrics on public hospital funding, emergency department visit times, and elective surgery wait times. The association's state president said earlier that the health operation budget is still in serial decline until recently, and little has been done in 2020 and 2021 to increase hospital capacity.
This is of relevance to every single one of us, even if you have private health insurance. If you have an accident, if you get really, really sick, you are going to rely on public hospitals, and you never know when that might be.
The dream of WA children qualifying for robotics competition in the United States is at risk, with the financial cost holding them back from heading to the competition. Competitors from Engineering for Kids have reached the VEX Robots Championship in dollars, but the cost of travelling, accommodation and registration has become a problem for the families. Engineering for Kids Director Dan Ma says they could miss out without help from the community to reach their goal.
The kids are really keen to go. They're very talented, they're hardworking kids, and their family very supportive to them. But the problem is because of the high cost of the flight costs, the accommodation expenses, and plus we also have to, the kids also have to pay for the World Championship registration fee. So it's quite a lot of fees for their families to, contribute for the trip to go at this stage. We hope that the whole community will, look into this issue and help our students to go further, chase their dreams, and help these students will give back to the communities in the future.
This week on the WMN Extra News Club, as Western Australia continues its lesson of living with COVID, small businesses in hospitality and retail in the city centre continue to struggle. As the rental situation in the CBD continues to improve, Perth Lord Mayor Basil Zempilas expressed his confidence that more people will return as restrictions are set to lift this coming Thursday.
I am very confident that as soon as those restrictions are lifted, people will make their way back into areas that we know they love. The City of Perth, CBD, Northbridge. If you look at our numbers for October, November, December, before the mandates came into place on the 23rd, we had record numbers, record activity, people everywhere. And our business owners and operators were recording and reporting really, really good numbers. We know we can get back there. We've got to get the masks off. We've got to get through these current COVID restrictions. The best way to do that is to continue to follow the rules.
You can read and watch all that plus more on the WMN Extra News Club. Subscribe to the link attached to this post and support independent local journalism.
Fiver worker Nigel Gould's successful mental health advocacy campaign has united politicians, union leaders and mining bosses as he presents an archable portrait in Perth. Mr Gould handed a portrait copy to Rio Tinto General Manager Romutan Brianwa at the Grosvenor Hotel. The artwork was presented in the presence of Federal Labor MP Matt Keogh, Australian Workers Union WA Campaign Director Shane Roostone and other powerful figures. The gathering is simple, but the message is powerful. It's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to get help.
Get people to say, if you're in trouble, go out and get some help. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm sick of seeing me mates die. I'm sick of seeing my workmates die. We want people to look after themselves, and that's the genuine reason I'm doing it.
Great job, Goldie.
And most importantly, when it comes to mental health, it is a difficult conversation, but it's a conversation that all Australians have to have, and hopefully we can encourage each other. We'll recap this week's top stories again in just a moment.
But right now, here's Nelson Liu with Western Perspective.
Thanks, Ivan and Melly. Hello and welcome to WP. This week, it's a long-running saga involving Perth's only casino, and now change is imminent. A Royal Commission and damning report tabled in Parliament this week found Crown unsuitable to operate a casino in WA, issuing 59 recommendations over failures at the venue. But are the changes enough? I spoke to former Liberal Party Upper House MP Anthony Fells about what he expects following the inquiry. Anthony Fells, thanks for joining us. The Royal Commission report into Crown's operation of its Perth Casino has been handed down. What's your take on the finding that it's unsuitable to run a casino in WA?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's very surprising to too many people, but the problem now is how does the government react to that other than considering a report and giving a rap on the knuckles and maybe a small fine, which won't make a big difference to their scale of operation. But I think, given that the Royal Commissioners have indicated that the operators of Crown shouldn't be operating a casino, I think the government ought to revisit the original Burswood Control Act of 1985 when they set up this casino, and the monopoly provisions that they put in there, because obviously the operators of the Crown Casino and whoever succeeds them should not have a monopoly over the casino operations in Western Australia.
These findings have been a long time coming, haven't they?
Well, it's almost 4 decades. It was the mid-80s when the Burke Labor government actually announced that they were building the first casino for West Australia. It was very controversial at the time. It was all part of the WA Inc. and the players involved in WA Inc. Dallas Dempster was given the licence, who was a big donor to the John Curtin Foundation, which was a Labor Party fundraising organisation. There was a parliamentary inquiry into a lot of the corrupt involvement of various people in that process. It was very contentious, but part of the Act and the assurances that the government gave at the time was that it would be majority owned by Western Australia. It was going to be listed on the stock exchange. Every West Australian had a chance to invest in shares in it, and in fact I did. It was the first shares I ever bought. I was still a university student at the time. I invested $1,000 and made 50% on the float. But it was all based on I think a Malaysian company, Genting, was the operators because they knew how to operate casinos in Malaysia. But there's a lot of controversy about having a casino here and whether it would assist organised crime and outlaw motorcycle gangs, which weren't so prevalent in those days, but they are now, and all those sort of people being able to wash or launder their money through the casino operations. And that's been proven to be so, not just locally with our outlaw underworld people, but also with international underworld operators coming to Perth and Melbourne and other casinos around Australia, and possibly Sydney in future if they were given the licence under Crown. But there's been millions and millions of dollars laundered through these operations without the authorities being aware or fully aware of it. And I think the only way to do that is you either have better regulation, and it's proven that hasn't been the case, or you give them some penalty like taking away their monopoly control, and in future if that sort of thing is happening, you can always threaten to bring competition into the market by opening up a licence to a new competitor.
And finally, do you believe the changes will be enforced, and what do you expect to see?
You never know in politics. They can, especially when you've got a government with a huge majority in both houses, there's not a lot of scrutiny from the opposition or minor parties. They just don't. They can argue about it as much as they can, but the government at the end of the day can make whatever decision they like. But I think it'll be good for all Western Australians to abolish the monopoly power, the monopoly position that Crown and the Crown casino owners enjoy at the moment. There's no need for almost 40 years since they were issued that original monopoly licence under the legislation. It's never been reviewed and never been removed, and it's time that happened urgently, and following on from that, they can make whatever changes they need to in line with the recommendations of the Royal Commission.
And now, here's AMA WA spokesman Dr Andrew Miller with his weekly COVID-19 update and commentary.
Hi, thanks for your time. I'm flying today, so the first time in 2 years. I have got my N95 and my eye protection, which I'll be popping back on in just a second, but firstly wanted to talk to you a little bit about the fact that our case numbers are rocketing back up across the country at the moment. 17,500 cases yesterday in New South Wales, over 7,500 in Victoria, in Queensland, similar number in WA, 3,500 in South Australia. So unfortunately we're certainly not seeing the reduction that we wanted to see, and that's as a result of a combination of the BA2 highly infectious variant and various places around the country reducing restrictions on gatherings and indoors and masks and so on. We're also seeing unfortunately quite a number of deaths. about 285 in the last 2 weeks, and our hearts go out to those families. And about 2,100 people in hospital, over 100 of those in ICU across the country. So this is not a mild disease, it's a very serious disease when it affects large numbers of people all at the same time and spreads incredibly quickly, as it's doing through our schools, where we have obviously all the kids under 5 unvaccinated, and many of the kids over the age of 5 only having had 1 dose so far. So still a lot of work to be done on this pandemic, despite the sort of talk that it may be over, and we need to be very careful when we're out and about. The most effective and simple thing to do is to wear a high quality mask when you're indoors, a P2 or N95 if possible, but something that fits closely to the face and cuts down on the amount of air that you're breathing in around the side of the mask. I think that it's reassuring that in the vast majority of people this is not a severe disease, but a small percentage of a big number is still a big number. So we need to take it very seriously, and for those over the age of 65 now, be getting along for that 4th dose of vaccine, remembering that vaccines are essential, but they're not going to be enough to stop this pandemic. We also have to breathe clean air, fresh air ventilation wherever we can, and high quality masks whenever we're indoors in a place where we might be sharing air. And the easiest tip, if you're going in a car, is to have the fresh air on rather than the recycled air, because that recycled air does build up extremely quickly. So get your RAT tests and use them. If you have any symptoms at all or any suspicion that you've been exposed to someone who's positive, and then keep yourself isolated if that test turns out positive, and follow it up with a PCR. We still need to take this very seriously, because with the cases going up at the rate that they're going up at the moment, the pandemic sure isn't over yet. Thanks very much for your time.
And that's WP for this week. We'll be back again next time, but for now, it's back to you, Ivan and Melly.
Thanks, Nelson. And here's Leo with what's coming up on 6 News tonight.
Thanks, guys. Tonight on 6 News, the federal budget set to be handed down by Treasurer Josh Frydenberg for the 4th and possibly final time in less than 48 hours. We'll let you know what to expect with the federal election now just weeks away.
Plus, Australia set to ease more travel restrictions as a 4th vaccine dose is recommended for those aged over 65.
And North Korea's latest missile launch puts the world on notice, but it was the way it was presented on state-run television that has gone viral.
You can see those full details on the stories and much more on our YouTube channel. Just search 6 News Australia to find us, or our website 6newsau.com. For now though, guys, it's back to you.
Thanks, Leo. And that's our weekly news and current affairs, with the latest news on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Don't forget to subscribe to WAMN Extra News Club so we can continue our good work in the community. You can find out more on wamnnews.com.au/news/extra. From Melly and myself, wish you good health, good night, see you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.